Salvete omnes. Ego praecipio vobis lectionem animosam. I stand before you today, in the tradition of the great orators like Cicero, to present an impassioned video essay on behalf of American Players Theatre, brought to you by the generosity of Melissa Jane Taylor, to settle once and for all, who is the best Roman emperor? We're not messing around here today, folks, with opinions. Great. We're dealing with the facts. The best Roman emperor is Hadrian. 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 More like Badrian. Am I right? One of the most squeezable Caesars ever to put his face on a Roman coin. He was a solid administrator, way less ruthless than many of his peers. Hadrian wasn't actually all that interested in conquering people. He actually gave back territories that his immediate predecessor Trajan had taken. He also stuck a big wall at the farthest northern point of his occupied area of Britain, which is known as Hadrian's Wall, and you can still see it today. But we don't want to just talk about politics. So sit back, relax, grab your olives, and let's talk about some lesser known facts about why Hadrian is the best Roman emperor. Olives really are the new popcorn. Well, I guess the old popcorn. So, one of my favorite things about Hadrian is that he's essentially an enormous nerd. He was obsessed with the Greeks, with their art, with their history, with their culture, with their language, with their style, so much that he was nicknamed Graeculus, which means Greekling. He had opinions on poetry. He ruffled a few feathers by claiming that it was Antimachus of Colophon, not Homer, who was the best poet. His extreme opinions and tastes about things sometimes alienated him from the people around him. Let's face it, all of us nerds and geeks know exactly what that feels like. Another reason that I love Hadrian is that he was a huge supporter of the arts. He wrote his own poetry and his own autobiography. He also sponsored some of the most famous building projects ever to come out of the Roman imperial period. We already mentioned Hadrian's Wall. He also designed his own personal luxury villa at Tivoli, and of course, the crown jewel of Roman architecture, the Pantheon. Now you might be wondering why it says M. Agrippa below the pediment instead of Hadrian. Well, Hadrian was so interested in being a modest first citizen of Rome that he credited the original sponsor of the original Pantheon, which had previously been destroyed, with his masterpiece of a temple. Hadrian was a generous sponsor and investor in the arts, and he absolutely would have donated to this fundraiser. Hadrian was also an unparalleled traveler. He traveled more in his tenure as emperor than any other emperor, personally visiting almost every major region in the empire at the time. All the way up to modern-day London, and all the way out toward modern-day Syria. Altogether, he was on the road for some of his major trips for more than 10 years. Unlike many of the politicians of his day, and many of the politicians in our own day, he actually took the time to get to know the places he was governing, making him enlightened. Hadrian also had long-term impact on Roman style by bringing back the beard. He set the trend for many emperors who followed him to grow out their facial hair and the hair on their head. Was it a nod to his beloved Greeks, or was it a way to cover some pockmarks on his face? Who knows? Who cares? I mean, how could you possibly ask someone to keep luscious curls like that short? And perhaps the part of Hadrian that stole my heart the most was his tragic love story. Sources say, including his own autobiography, that he felt deeply in love with a young man named Antinous, who was, incidentally, Greek. Now, while Antinous was traveling with Hadrian and his entourage in Egypt, he fell tragically and mysteriously into the Nile and drowned. Hadrian was absolutely heartbroken. To honor Antinous, he had him deified, or turned into a god. He founded a city on the spot where Antinous had fallen, and named it Antinopolis. And he even named a new star after him, because he believed that that was where Antinous' soul was now residing. The legacy of Antinous has survived thanks to numerous pieces of art depicting him, and of course, the emperor's own writings. So I believe that is a solid QED for why Hadrian is the best Roman emperor. You sure you don't want a grape? Gratias vobis ago for lending me your ears. I hereby conclude this video essay with the wise concluding sentiments of the great orator, Cato the Censor, Carthago delenda est. Carthage must be destroyed.
Are you not entertained?